Al Perry enjoyed a decades-long career in music and radio, including 8 influential years at iconic, groundbreaking, and leading Boston rock station WBCN FM. Perry began his radio career at BCN when the station featured a classical music format. And then in 1968, after its flip to rock, he worked his way up, from late-night jock to salesman to sales manager, and finally as general manager, providing critical leadership for the young, iconoclastic, and often uncontrollable staff of the freeform rock station. Now, this was during the height of the 1960s counterculture and anti-Vietnam War era. While not much older than the rest of the staff, Al took it upon himself to be the adult in the room, both to shield the federally licensed radio station from problems with the FCC and to also ensure there would be enough advertising money to pay salaries and bills. Personally, Al Perry saved my job. I was about to be fired, I remember one day, and Al rolled up his shirt sleeves and said, "If La Cuadera goes, I go." And here I am. Former WBCN colleague David Bieber adds, Alfredo, as he was known to many, was loyal to a fault. He was contemplative, spontaneous, warm, and hair-triggered, always generous in time, wisdom, and for some, a lot more coin than you'd find between the pillows of a sofa. I can personally attest to that as well. His place in rock and radio history will be forever remembered by his family, by his friends, and by his radio colleagues.
Good evening, I'm Peter Meek.
And I'm Mary Richardson.
Mary Richardson's chronicle career spanned 26 years and a lifetime of stories. In many ways, Mary shaped and defined Chronicle after joining the show in 1984. She brought her news instincts and her gift for storytelling, and it was a perfect fit. This California native became a goodwill ambassador for Boston. Her fans found her everywhere.
But it was Ohio that put John Kerry over the top.
Most importantly, Mary was a consummate reporter who went straight to the heart of a story.
Am I scared? Yes, I'm scared. Scared to death.
She knew the town. She was a journalist. She had worked covering hard news stories, doing features, and she was Mary. I mean, she had that personality that people took to. The fact that we were friends, I guess, came across.
She was a force in motion. She was just an exuberant person who loved people, and she was always gracious.
And she was a beautiful storyteller. The way that she connected with people and the way she wanted to share her own fascination with and love of the world around her.
Paul Boom Boom Cannon had a big career in radio that took him throughout the Northeast with stops in Buffalo, Providence, Hartford, and finally as the program director for 94.7 WMAS in Springfield. He also did mornings as part of 2 morning shows, Brad Shepard and Friends and Dave James and the J Crew. He helped launch the career of longtime WMAS talents Lopez and Dina McMahon and brought the first Children's Miracle Network Radiothon to WMAS in 2002. Paul was a broadcaster through and through, and his distinctive laugh will be missed throughout New England. His legacy echoes across the markets he served, and he will be missed.
It's difficult to put into words how big of a hole the loss of Chris Collins has left in Franklin County. And not just in the broadcasting world, although that's something he'd been doing since he was a teenager. Chris was a consummate newsman. No one attacked a local story like Chris did, whether it was for radio or local access cable TV or print. He did all of that. And he did it all with such joy and passion. But he was also a well-respected member of the community. Local politicians might not always have liked what Chris had to say, but they respected him because they knew he was fair. He was a good citizen, he was a good person, and he was not afraid to admit it if he got something wrong. Almost everyone, when they heard of Chris's passing, said the same thing. Franklin County will never see another one like him.
I'm meteorologist Mitch. It is dawn on the summit of Mount Washington.
So if you lived in the New England area or in the Boston area in the 90s, early 2000s, you definitely knew who Mitch Michaels was. Mitch was an absolutely brilliant meteorologist, loving mother, wife, colleague, and really mentor to me and to so many other young folks around that time. There was a tornado that went through Mish's neighborhood when she was in kindergarten down in Maryland. And it was because of that that she got interested in the science and in weather. I feel as if that had never happened, she probably would have been a famous author or an artist. She painted amazing with watercolors. She could have been an equestrian. She won medals and awards for her horseback riding. She really excelled at everything she did. And I feel like us scientists, meteorologists, sort of lucked out because we got her as our own.
Oh my God, I gotta get down!
She was not just an on-air meteorologist showing graphics each night. In fact, she wanted to do much more than that. She was really an investigative science reporter and one of the first of her kind.
Right now we are nearing the Eye of Isabel.
She made it a point to have a voice for women in sciences. She was in the Big Sister organization. She brought up so many of the meteorologists you see on TV today, the female meteorologists, either learned from Mish or aspired to be Mish. There are countless dozens of other scientists, not just meteorologists, but scientists in general, female scientists who owe a debt of gratitude to Mish as well. She was a dear friend, a brilliant woman, brilliant meteorologist, and just one of a kind.
There is, in fact, a sun behind those clouds, and we are looking forward to seeing a lot more of it in the days to come.
The surf is now crashing over some of the houses in the low-lying coastal areas.
For 3 decades, there was nary a New England storm without Shelby Scott standing in the midst of it.
Brought you some hot coffee, hot chocolate, and hot food.
Well, that's wonderful. You got enough for my crew?
Shelby came to BZ from Seattle in 1965 to anchor the noon news, eventually becoming half of the station's first all-female anchor team. With a sense of humor, she often turned on herself.
The MBTA.
Her impact was greatest in the field, though, tough when she had to be, but more often than not, charming.
Are you all Democrats?
She became legendary for storm coverage, prompting the Boston Globe to jokingly measure snowfall in Shelby's instead of feet. She retired in 1996 with that trademark smile still on her face.
If I do come back for storms, I have one for all kinds of weather.
And indeed, she did come out of retirement for a handful of storms, covering them like nobody else could.
Shelby Scott, Eyewitness News.
He was unfailingly upbeat, offbeat, and intensely himself.
He really knew what he was talking about. He graduated from University of Wisconsin. He went to the Navy, worked as a meteorologist up in Alaska and Florida. He was on the hurricane patrols. He did that, and he was very, very good. A little eccentric at times, but I really enjoyed it. He was a little nuts.
Shoot the bird, shoot him. He was really serious about what he did, but he did it in a funny way. He was kind of a wild and crazy guy.
He was unpredictable. He knew how to predict the weather, but he was unpredictable.
He was also so comfortable in the moment that he could be freewheelingly free associating with anything that popped into his mind.
I remember as a child of course, the indelible memory of his 5 days on the air during the blizzard of 78. Did he ever talk with you a lot about that?
Oh, we were there together. I was doing all of the broadcasting. He was doing all of the weathercasting. We spent the first night, there were a bunch of people sharing rooms over at the Days Inn, and almost got lost in a snowdrift coming back. So after that, we all stayed in our offices.
He had a Volkswagen convertible, Beetle, that he brought off into the station. And one day he left the top down and it rained. And I thought that was really funny. I mean, here's a weather guy at a convertible, left the top down and it rained.